Yo, welcome to Sig Slayers, the comic interview show, period. I'm Mike, the Sig Slayer, chilling with Mark, the honorable villain. What up, fam?
What's up, Mike? This woman is living the dream from journalist to comic creator. Let them know who we got, man.
Joining us today, we got one of the hottest new writers in the game, Stephanie Williams. But before we chop it up with Stephanie, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of the show. Our next guest is the writer of Nubia and the Amazons and several Marvel Infinity comics. Ladies and gentlemen of the Stash Land, we bring to you writer Stephanie Williams. What's up, Stephanie?
Hey, happy to be here.
We are happy to have you here. We're just going to dive right on in. So excited about this. So, Stephanie, since it's your first time on the show, we like to get your comic book origin story. In other words, how did you get your first gig in pro comics?
Ooh, okay, so I'm going to try to keep it short because it's a bit of a saga, like longer than the Infinity Saga. My first career, I went to school thinking I wanted to be a doctor, and then I was like, well, I like people, but not that much. So I fell in love with research, the behind the scenes thing, and graduated with, my bachelor's, and I thought about going to get my PhD, but I was able to find a job straight out of college in a research lab. So I worked in electron microscopy or as electron microscopist for 7 years. The last 3 years I was there, I had my son, and after having him, I was like, all right, so we're here, we're doing this thing, but we're just kind of doing it because it just logically was the thing to do, but that's not where our heart is. Also, my boss sucked. Like, she was awful. So she was a horrible PI. I reached out to an author who I really admired her work, Maureen Smith, and she emailed me back. She sent back this very long email. She took her time to answer my questions, which was basically, hey, your work has inspired me. I want to get back into writing, but I don't know exactly, what to do. And basically her encouragement was to, just do it. Find something that I really want to talk about, get into, writing communities, and, reach out to her if I ever had any questions. So that weekend I went and got a new laptop because I had the same one since I was like a freshman in college. And I started blogging. So I started blogging my parental experiences, being a new mom, and liking kind of, talking about Sarah Connor and, Ripley and all these other strong moms, and kind of liking it to what I was experiencing. And then from their podcasting, so a little short snip podcasting. And I think that's what broke it wide open, because I did this podcast called Misty Knight's Uninformed Afro, where we took this academic approach, talking about Black women characters in comics. So we got invited to the Kennedy Arts Center in 2018, and I was like, "Oh, this is huge. They'll pay you to be here, fly you out, take care of lodging, and all of this." So maybe folks are really taking this as seriously as I have been. So when that podcast fell apart, I had all this research that I had did, and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't think I wanted to do another podcast, and I wanted to really get back to writing and doing more than just memes on Twitter. So I pitched to an editor at Sci-Fi, and the first piece was the evolution of the Dora Milaje from comics to movies, because Black Panther came out that year, and they loved it. And next thing I knew, I was a regular contributor, and I was still working at the hospital, still being still electron microscopist. So I would write in between experiments, which was funny. So I'm reading comics, of course, writing about these characters. And then when I got off work, doing the same thing. So I was kind of pulling two jobs at the same time. So I want to say in 2019, I finally left my job. I was getting enough consistent freelance work that I could do that. And I got this little side job as a logistics person for some security company, and that maybe lasted 7 months, but it allowed me the freedom that I didn't have at the hospital, because I was able to work from home. So did that, left that job, and then my husband was like, hey, you have been making so many waves from doing this part-time. Let's see what can happen if you're able to focus on it full-time. So he was like, don't worry about trying to like, go into something else, like just focus on the writing. So I was very grateful for him for that, because that is really what gave me the space to, really take off. So I did drive Lyft on the side, because I don't know, I'm from Chicago. So like, I gotta do a little extra something. And that's when the web comics really started coming out. So Parenthood Activate with Sarah Macklin, But What If Though, and then Living Heroes, because I was doing these one-page comics, because one, that's all I could afford. And then two, it was less daunting on the artists. Instead of giving them a 22-page or 50-page, whatever, one page. They could get it done, I can get it done. We can, we all got work to show, those pages add up. So did the Kickstarter for Living Heroes, and that funded a little over 24 hours. Very surprised by that. And I thought that Marvel would send me a cease and desist. They thankfully did not. And I kind of feel like they wouldn't have, because I knew that they were sharing my X-Men memes among the X-Slack at the time when the Krakoa era was going on. So fast forward 6 or 8 months into 2020, editor from Marvel reached out to me and was like, hey, want you to, would you like to participate in Marvel Voices Legacy? And I'm like, yeah. So they gave me 2 pages, did a Monica Rambeau story. And I think that same week it came out in February, I spoke to an editor at DC Comics, and we were talking about Amazon's, I just thought I was doing an 8-page story for Wonder Woman Black and Gold, because I wasn't expecting anything so huge, so fresh into this. But the next thing I knew, I was having a conversation with editor and Vita Ayala about bringing Nubia back to relevancy. And to say that the rest is history is still being written. 4 years later, I have maybe, I think, over 100 writing credits, which is insane to me. But that's because, one, I don't want to go back to that job. So like, that's always in the back of my mind. Like, I feel like it's a T-Rex chasing after me. So that's probably why I work the way I do. But also like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I can feel that. The way that I feel about writing and storytelling is something that I just did not feel when I was working in science. Like, I loved it, but this is a different level of love.
Great story. You grew up a huge comic fan, Stephanie. Who are some of your writing influences growing up, though?
So when I actually finally started paying attention to writers, because, we all have this thing where we're reading stories based on the characters, then eventually the artists, and then finally you're like, oh, someone did write this. So Dwayne McDuffie, for sure, is at the top of the list. I've always loved Kelly Sue DeConnick. Even going way back to Mark Grunwald, like his Captain American run, like I just really appreciated it. Of course, Mark Waid, Greg Rucka, George Perez, a lot of these writers and even artists as well, who their stories have, this relatability, this humanity to them, even though they're writing these characters that are these superheroes, especially Dwayne McDuffie. That is something that I always felt every single time I read something he wrote, and I was like, yeah, this is what I would like to do. Like, I would like to have, write these stories that people are able to connect to on just like this emotional level, and take it a bit further. So he's definitely top of the list.
Stephanie, you have some credits for writing for Rotten Tomatoes, Nerdist, Sci-Fi Wire. Are those commission gigs, or do you pitch those to them?
So some of them were pitches, some of them were commissions. It just all depends. I know for the piece that I wrote for Rotten Tomatoes, they reached out to me. It was around the time, unfortunately, when Chadwick had passed away. And they wanted someone to kind of write this tribute. So they reached out to me, which I was honored by that. And it was a great experience, not given the circumstances, but it was nice to be able to, write about this actor who had such an impact in such a short time. And then a lot of them were pitches. So Sci-Fi Wire or Sci-Fi Fangirls, like all of those were mainly like things that I would pitch. And I had got to a point where I don't want to necessarily say I was burnt out, but I felt like I was watching stuff just to pitch about it, and I didn't like that. So I knew eventually like I was going to have to make some type of pivot. I just didn't know what that was going to be. Because writing comics, like, it crossed my mind, but it didn't seem like something that, I don't know, that was obtainable, that would really actually happen. But then I was like, well, I'll do it. Like, you just have to do the thing instead of waiting for permission to do it. So yeah, like, it was a mix of the two.
Was there a big learning curve transitioning from journalism to scripting the comics? And then did you have a comic creator mentor during that period?
So, sorta. So Regine Sawyer was someone that encouraged me to go ahead and like start my first webcomic, which was Parenthood Activate. But as far as like a direct mentor before I started working with, DC and Marvel, no, not really. I was just really a student of comics, I guess you could say. When I knew that I wanted to figure out how to start scripting, I bought as many trade paperbacks that I could that had scripts in them. So the one that stood out the most was House of X, Powers of X, the director's cut. And hindsight, very foolish to try to learn from Jonathan Hickman's scripts, but it was a steep learning curve that worked out in my favor because I don't know, maybe because of my science background, I was able to, look at all these different examples, but still figure out a way to make it my own. Like when you're in research and you're doing these experiments, sometimes you're redoing an experiment that someone else has done to confirm, if your theory is right or not, or you're using someone else's experiment to, figure out how to tweak it and do whatever it is that you need for whatever it is that you're working on. So I just applied that, and funny enough, memeing really helped make that transition easy for me because, taking these screenshots and telling a story with those images. The only difference now is that I got to write out what I wanted those images to be and then put the words to them. So I tell folks all the time, like, I think memeing was really what made this transition far easier for me than it would have been to just go straight from, working in the lab to writing articles to doing writing comics.
Great memes, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Game from memes. I love that. Okay, the two web comics, Parenthood Activate and But What If Though. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the origins of that and then all that?
Yeah. So Parenthood Activate, again, kind of came from memeing. These are stories that I would share on Twitter anyway, just little stuff that, my son would do, like his restaurant, which still has a low rating from me to this day. So taking stories like that and inspiration from like a show like Rugrats and thinking, okay, so like, what if we kind of had this fantastical approach, but from a parent's perspective? So that's kind of how Parenthood Activate started. And then for But What If Though, I don't know, I knew I wanted to get folks' attention. And I know from being at conventions, a lot of time for artists, fan art is what gets people to come over to them and check out their work and then find out all these amazing like original characters and stuff that they have. So the idea with But What If Though was to kind of have like this living color type of storytelling where I was taking different characters from different IPs and just putting them in these silly situations. And then, sharing that with the world. And that went over pretty well.
All right. Now it's time to talk about some Nubia now. I feel like you're the foremost Nubia person in the whole world now, okay? So tell everybody who Nubia is as a character.
So I'm going to give you my comic convention spiel that I give folks, but Nubia was first introduced as Wonder Woman's twin sister back in 1973 and Wonder Woman 204. She's this badass woman that just kind of shows up with Themyscira boots on, fucking up the couch. and challenges Wonder Woman for her crown. It just comes out of nowhere. So she does best Wonder Woman, but then leaves. So just being utterly disrespectful, but also could back it up. Then we find out in the very next issue that Hippolyta has some type of retrograde amnesia and forgot that the child, because Mars had came and stole Nubia after Hippolyta made both her and Diana, and sequestered her away and had her on this floating island with a bunch of other men, just learning how to fight and tussle. So when Nubia comes back, her and Diana get together to defeat Mars, because Diana's able to kind of get through to her and say, hey, like, you're being used, and you should want better for yourself. So they defeat Mars, shake hands. She says, I'll be back, and then she doesn't come back. We don't really see her again until what is it, like Supergirl 19 or Supergirl 9, and she's comatose the whole issue, like the entire time. We see her again in the 90s for like 2 issues. She's randomly in Las Vegas with Diana, and she comes up through an elevator from, I guess, hell. I don't know where she was. She was in the basement somewhere. Her man died, and she was upset about that. So she came and was ready to get revenge, along with Diana, for this villain that was in the MGM Grand, I guess. So they do that, and we see Nubia a little bit more in Grant Morrison's run, but a different iteration of her. And yeah, that's like it. This character who was brought in to be was unfortunately wasted. Because how do you introduce a twin sister to Wonder Woman and then like do nothing with her? So after L.L. McKinney brought her back for Future State, it was time for takeoff and to like really cement her as someone who is her own woman, and her value doesn't need to be placed on her proximity to Diana. And for me, like, I didn't want it to be a thing of one is better than the other. And I also didn't want Nubia to feel othered from the Amazons, because that's been her whole existence, being othered, like, not being on the island with them and never really being presented as a true Amazon. So when DC asked us to change the origin story, I was like, bet. Remember, George Perez introduced the Cavern of Souls, which I thought was such a beautiful way to repopulate Themyscira. So we had her come through the Well of Souls to be, I guess, a true Amazon, so to speak. And it's Diana's birth that pretty much triggers her coming out of the Well of Souls to kind of still connect them in some kind of way, even though they're not sisters, so to speak.
Can you tell us what it's like working with the great Alita Martinez, and tell us about your collaborations with her?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, it was funny when the editor let me know that Alita was going to be on the book. I didn't know how to feel, because I was a fan of Alita. Like, I really enjoyed World of Wakanda and all the other work that she had did. So to be working with someone who has been a trailblazer in the space, especially another Black woman, I don't like, it was next level.
And Steph, you wrote a lot of the Infinity comics for Marvel, and those are web format. How do you approach writing for the web format versus print?
So it's more of a transition than I think folks think, because or at least the way that Marvel does it, because they do it different than DC does theirs. They have you do like 6 pages, and it's 6 panels per page. So in that way, it sort of kind of feels similar to writing a regular script, but you are thinking instead of page turns. So a page turn is basically whatever that last panel is on the odd page. Do we want people to turn to see what's next? And I even think of page turns even being whatever that last panel is on your left side, your left side of the page. So with the scrolling panel, you have to think of how are we going to use space, because you don't want to just have a bunch of blank spaces because you just got like this little panel here and then it's just all white in the background. So how can you get creative with that and write scenes that allow the reader to, or the artist more so, to flow down the page with whatever they're drawing. So with Spider-Man, a little bit easier because he can swing on down and different things like that. But you can't always do that. So it's kind of finding this balance of when to take advantage of the scrolling format, and then when do you just have to, treat it like a regular comic and you just got different panels. So yeah, it's a little bit of a shift. The webtoons or the webcomics that I'm writing right now for DC, those are just between 60 and 80 panels all the way through. I try to keep mine down to 60 because I don't want the artist cursing me out because I got them drawn too much. So I've been trying to tell these stories within 60 panels, and it's a weekly thing, which is far harder than I have to do like a regular 22-page comic. So it's like every week, 60 or so panels.
It was because of your web experience of doing your own web comics that they kind of said, hey, you'll be good doing web comics for DC or Marvel? Or was it that transition? Because were you doing the web comics first? Your own web comics?
No, yeah, I was doing my own web comics first, but no, I actually didn't get asked to do the scrolling format until I had did a few print things. So the not so I don't know. I guess I'm being a little messy when I say this, but I kind of feel like, at least on the Marvel side, when they push certain folks off to just doing the Infinity comics, it's a little easier to say, hey, we got people doing things versus, hey, we got people doing things in these physical books. Right. If you look at like where, who some of the writers and artists are that are like kind of sequestered away on the Infinity comics, there's some overlap, I'll put it that way. For me, even though I kind of felt that way, I just want to work. So I, just said yes to it anyway. And then like, for me, it's just important to get my reps in, and I want to tell a story at the end of the day. So whether it's web comic, physical comic, whatever, I don't care. But yeah, that is a trend that I noticed that I was not necessarily a fan of.
Being a lifelong comic book fan, do you have a fangirl moment when you realize that you're living your childhood dream? Did you meet someone, or was it a job opportunity, or was it all of the above?
It's all of the above. Being at conventions and then having folks whose work I've read them come to my table and say, hey, like, I really love what you did here. Mark Waid did that when I was at GalaxyCon in Raleigh. It took me by surprise because he walked up, I think it was in the middle of signing something, and he was talking, and I was like, wait, you're who? So I looked up, and that kind of threw me. But it was a really great experience. Same thing with like Rodney Barnes, Greg Rucka. Like meeting these folks, Daryl Banks, like meeting these Brian Stelfreeze, like meeting these folks and them telling you like, yeah, I like what you're doing. I think you're extremely talented, and like we're just so happy you're in this space. That means a lot. As far as projects, yeah, like I'm writing Street Sharks. Like that's insane to me. My brother texted me when that news came out and was like, yo, what? Because that was our show growing up. Like we had the action figures and all of that. So it's surreal. Like there's never not a time where I'm just like, well, damn, like I'm really actually doing this. And it's a humbling experience every single time. Like I'm just forever grateful because like it's not like you just walk into comics and say, hey, I want to work for Marvel or DC. Like it doesn't work like that. So to have had these opportunities, trust me, is not something I take lightly.
Stephanie, we're on our very last question. Is there something that we haven't talked about that you want the fans to know about? Any upcoming projects, any upcoming appearances? Do you want to talk about that ad that Vin Diesel did for Street Sharks at one time? Do you want to talk more about Street Sharks?
I do want to talk more about Street Sharks because I don't like, for me, that project and being tapped for that let me know that so far in my career, like I have been putting out the type of energy and I don't know, like I've been very intentional. So like to get a project like that for an editor to know like, yeah, Stephanie would rock something like that, that means a lot because if I could be very real, my first pro comic gig being Marvel Voices Legacy, a heritage book, that scared me because I said, will anyone ever hear from me ever again? Because unfortunately, when folks appear in those books, depending on whom they are, we don't really see them again. It's not like they go off and they get these solo books or anything like that. They just kind of show up in this one-time, 1-month book, and then we never see them again. So to go from that to, writing Street Sharks, the most bro-y, title that could be, is a lot. It's amazing. And I hope that, it's an example to just other Black women and Black girls. Like, you can literally write whatever it is that you want to write. Like, you don't have to deal with people putting you in a box and trying to kind of pigeonhole you into only doing one thing. Like, I'm always going to want to write Black women, Black girls, all of these things. But yeah, I want to write Street Sharks. Like, I want to do stuff like that. I want to do the things that, some of, my peers get to do just because they're white guys who really are pumped about this thing and get to work on this project. So to work on Street Sharks, Alien was another one. Like, I'm a huge Alien fan, like unnecessarily so. Like, all the novelizations, I've read those. I live for them, the comics, all of that. So My Little Pony's another one that was, really cool. I've done some custom comics, which I didn't even know that was a thing. So literally the Thunderbolts, those comics that they passed out at the Regal movie theater, I wrote that. To have opportunities like that, to work on stuff like that, it's just been amazing. And now I'm working on, or I just finished one of my first creator-owned project with Mad Cave that will be announced soon. That was really cool. I'm doing a cosmic horror for Ignition Press. So to also be able to write across genres has been really great. I know a lot of people, know me for my comedy, but I can do other stuff. And, I feel like horror, I'm very excited for folks to see what I have in store for that. Then the Raven Boys graphic novel adaptation, that'll be out in July. So yeah.
It's popping right now.
It is. I'm going to I have Heroes Con June 20th to the 22nd. That was one of my favorite conventions. And I'm not just saying that because it's the home convention, but it's a really dope convention because everyone who's everyone is always there, artists and creators.
We'll be there next year. Really, that's bucket list.
Yes, please. Because y'all are missing out. It's an amazing convention. I'm going to Fan Expo Denver. I'll be there for the 4th of July, which is interesting to me. And then this will be my first year attending San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm very excited about that because I have booth signings. What? I'm signing ash cans. That's wild. I'm looking forward to that. Experiencing everything, saying hello to as many people as I can, and just keeping the train going.
Man, fantastic! You're gonna have a blast in San Diego. Watch, it's gonna be awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. You always have a home here on the Sig Slayers station. So anything you want to promote, please holler at your boys, please.
I sure will. And I almost forgot Warriors in We Wonder. That'll be out July 15th. So right around the time y'all are listening to this, check out Warriors in We Wonder. I got Diana giving the Amazons a run for their money. That little toddler is tearing the women up.
Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit the like button. This is Sig Slayers. I'm Mike, speaking for Mark and Stephanie Williams. We are out. Peace!
Sig Slayers.